In today's clip, I'm going to tell you guys about one of the newest variations of the FIRE movement, called MOFIRE. God, I love these acronyms, okay? This one stands for Morbidly Obese FIRE, a play on the term fat fire. I hope you guys can see where this is going, okay? I'll define it, tell you who it's appropriate for, and what I think the limitations are, okay? Ayo, XenPuck here. Another day having more fun than I can imagine. So if you're here, please do me a huge favor, comment, like, and subscribe, because those things don't cost a thing, and I'm sure we're all spend it out during this holiday season. Okay. So, topic on hand, MOFIRE. What is it? I define it as, at least for the U.S., any financially independent person or household whose annual yearly expenses is over $200,000. Of course, spending varies greatly depending on geography, but since there is no upper limit, that can be as high as your imagination, right? So I had to put some sort of figure against the average type of spending in the U.S. So to me, this is obviously a more advanced version of fat fire. However, it's so advanced that it's almost bordering on parody in terms of what what the whole fire movement is all about. Okay, so if your life's goal is to achieve such a high spending goal, okay, which based on the 4% rule backs out to a net worth of basically at least $5 million. I'm not really sure whether the very basic tenets of the financial independence retire early movement really applies to you anymore. Okay. I will, though, add a caveat, which is that I think MOFIRE can be an additional goal once you've already hit regular fire or fat fire, right? So honestly, it's a goal for someone like me, but me, I am in a very small minority of people at this point in life. So it's just going to get increasingly slim in terms of who the audience would be for this type of philosophy. Okay, so who is it appropriate for? Here are the list of people that I can think of, right? People who have received or can expect a sizable inheritance. Okay? Second group, people who have received or can expect a windfall from some sort of business, presumably a sort of from a startup, like if you're an early employee or a founder of a startup. That's reasonable, or combined with one of those types of windfalls, people who have extremely expensive taste. Okay, so I put this last one here because, let me be clear, I'm not sure that I can reasonably spend $200,000 just based on habit alone, right? This is because, I mean, how did I get to financial independence to begin with, right? It's because I'm, quite intentional about my spending, right? Even with, I found a life partner who has more expensive taste than me and she wants to fly business class. Even based on calculations where every flight over a certain number of hours, then I'm going to attribute to business class flights, which is 5 to 7 times the cost of a regular flight, I still only put in, that's about a $50,000 budget for flying around the world every year. So to me, to be able to spend more than $200,000 regularly, this is actually, I have to really pay attention to spend more. Now, obviously, for those of you who are younger, who are like, well, spending money is easy. That's true, spending money is easy, but not for people who've been relatively efficient or frugal all their lives, okay? Which leads me to, what do I think the limitations are for MOFIRE? Here are the bigger ones, right? Part of the point of FIRE is to have a relatively long retirement, right? Which could last somewhere between 40 to 60 years, okay? Compared to the typical 20 to 30, okay? So having a very high spending goal means that proportionally, you're going to have to deal with a much larger amount of market volatility, okay? So the higher your nest egg is, the more variations you will see, right? So I hope, people who are aiming for a MOFIRE, you can really hold your breath when the market swings, right? Because your money absolutely will need to be in the stock market to have any chance of lasting that many decades, okay? And the other limitation I think I've already alluded to earlier in the clip, which is that, in the definition bit, right? The fact is that people who want to get to MOFIRE essentially wants to spend like the regular consumerist-minded people, or drones I'd like to call them, without the actual job. That makes me wonder how they got to any level of FIRE to begin with, okay? Because when you boil it down, FIRE in essence is about intentionality and efficiency with both spending and making money, right? So if people who want MOFIRE essentially want to keep the spending part the same, then they are forced to somehow make an incredible amount of money, right? That's definitely possible, okay? Let me be clear, it's definitely possible. That's why I said who I think it's mostly suited for are people who get windfalls, right? Like large injections of cash. But that's unlike most advice that I would ever give about how to reach financial independence for the average person, which is about slow and steady wins a race, right? If you want a windfall, either you have to have rich relatives or you have to get incredibly lucky as your startup, right? So in conclusion, yeah, I think this one is kind of mostly a pipe dream, right? For people who haven't hit financial independence in any form quite yet. So here's the order of events, right? I've talked about many of these definitions. Essentially, for most people, the order goes like this. In the beginning, follow Dave Ramsey about debt reduction, right? In the middle, once you no longer owe any debt or you're trying to pay off your house, in the middle, concentrate on being minimalist or being frugal, and then just follow the regular FIRE train. And then finally, you can, once you already have hit FIRE and you're already comfortable, being totally okay with your daily expenses and with some level of luxuries, but without a corporate job, then you can go for this curiously named MOFIRE. I mean, I do love the name. I just wish that people don't get too attracted to this idea. You're like, oh man, I can spend just like what I think rich people spend their money on, right? If you think like that, you're never going to hit any level of FI to begin with, right? So first get to regular FIRE, and then you can think about how to inflate your lifestyle. But just remember, there's danger to that as well, right? Like over time, additional inflation will essentially it will wear on you, because the reality is that we all get adapted to higher and higher level of spending much more easily, right? It's easy to move up in the hedonic adaptation scale and it's very hard to come down. So I'd say work on that mental game. Once you get to FIRE of any type, you'll probably change your mind about whether MOFIRE is really the additional type of goal that you actually want. In the meantime, check out some other videos on those corners. Cheers, guys.